The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Straight ahead on this edition of Perspectives, New York has a new mayor. We'll break down what exactly that means for New Yorkers, as well as in the world of politics. That's straight ahead on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Jaime.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective, which shines a light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life. What's your perspective?
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Darren Jaime. And of course, we here on Perspectives invite you to stay connected to the show. Hit us up on our social networking sites. You can catch us on Facebook at BronxNet Television and BronxNet Perspectives. That would be the site where you can go and catch us on Facebook. And then also hit us up on Twitter. There you can be able to find out about some past episodes, see some new episodes, get the opportunity to share your comments, and hear from us as to what we think as we share our perspective with you. Coming up on this edition of Perspectives, we go front and center with the issue of politics in New York City. New York has a new mayor, Bill de Blasio. After much controversy and the question as to whether or not he would actually make it, it's finally official. Bill de Blasio was elected as New York City's mayor, the first Democratic mayor in 20 years. And so now, here to break down what all of this means and here sharing with us today is Brian Ogilvie. He is the blogger for DoTheKnowledge.com. He is not only just the blogger for DoTheKnowledge.com, he is the author of How to Conquer Yourself, Discipline and Willpower for the Conscious Creative Thinker. And he's also the owner of DoTheKnowledge.com. And Brian, good to have you.
Hey, Darren, it's a pleasure.
So good to have you. Yes, take that handshake anytime. Now, let me ask you this. For 20 years, New York has gone without a Democratic mayor. Bill de Blasio is now front and center, will take office in January. First of all, were you surprised by the fact that we're talking about Bill de Blasio being the new mayor of New York after all of the names that we heard in the beginning?
Not at all. Not at all. I think de Blasio has look, particularly with his family, particularly with his approach when he speaks, particularly with his campaigning, that sets him apart from the other Democratic candidates. I, unlike many others, was pretty sure that he would come through in the end. And then, of course, compared to Lota, it wasn't a...
Compared to Lota, that's another story. Yeah. But give me the fact that from the beginning, when you heard names, Christine Quinn, you heard William Thompson, we talked about possibly John Liu, and then you saw those names that actually came out into the fold, even Adolfo Carrion. Were you surprised by the fact that Bill de Blasio was able to carry the Democratic primary?
No, not at all. And then, of course, specifically with his son and the stop and frisk issue, I'm not surprised at all that he came to the forefront and that he outshone or outshined his competition.
How much of a perfect storm was that? The whole stop and frisk movement and then the ability to come out with his son on the commercial, because many people said that was the tipping point that made the decision.
Yeah, most definitely. That's what you call capitalizing on a perfect opportunity. In our world and in politics specifically, we have to make sure that we not only address issues, but use them in our campaigning and in our moves forward. So I think he not only addressed the issue well and integrated his son, saying, hey, look, I have a black son, and this is not going to happen to my child. So therefore, it's not going to happen to yours as well. I think that allowed him a key integral point to resonate with communities that have been, for the most part, ignored, not only by Bloomberg, but by Giuliani as well.
With Stop and Frisk now going through its own set of challenges, we know the judge who actually ordered against the Stop and Frisk, Judge Sheindlin, lost her position as a judge. And we know that Bill de Blasio is very much outspoken against anti stop and frisk. Where do we see things going entering into City Hall? Are we going to see a lot of combating? Because also, new mayor brings new police chief.
New police chief, exactly. Well, that's one of the big questions, and that's one of the big concerns, because as we know, we don't know exactly who he's going to bring in specifically in each integral component. So with Bill now facing the new judge and the new judicial review, he's going to have to phase things in with not only stop and frisk, but his views on education, income inequality, etc. He has a big plate ahead of him. He has a lot that he needs to work on in integral components or work on in phases. And so I think if he tackles that issue first and addresses that first and has the right team around him to make that structure work, he'll be all right.
Throughout the campaign, we heard him use this analogy, a tale of two cities.
Brilliant.
How powerful was that in captivating voters to be swayed de Blasio's way?
Honestly, I think that was up there with the stop and frisk
He just
imagery.
had perfect marketing.
Yeah. Capitalizing off Charles Dickens. And as a writer, I can relate to this too. Saying a tale of two cities, putting it in that language, putting it within that framework, something that everyone can relate to. There's a saying, if you can express somebody's concerns better than they can, they'll unconsciously credit you with having the solution. And so I think that was his pivotal key. That was more so than many other factors, his spotlight or his gateway into the popular arena.
So when you look at Bill de Blasio right now and you say, here he is, first Democratic mayor in 20 years.
Yes.
What do we think is going to happen by way of administration? Because not only do we have a new mayor, you got a new public advocate, you got comptrollers, you got city council persons. What can we
It's a whole new scene, Darren, and that's what makes this so exciting. It's a paradigm shift into a progressive arena or into a progressive hold. And so, like I and a lot of my associates talk about, there's a progressive promise that creates a big sense of anticipation and then a big sense of a big need for delivery. With this progressive idealization, and then Tish talks about this as well, with this new progressive agenda taking hold, he has not only the opportunity to change things because he has so much support, which is almost, what's the word? Contrary to New York politics in recent history generally. Never before has there been a mayor that has had the support of the middle class and of the lower class as to the degree that he has. So he has a big bill ahead of him, and he has to, again, separate these things and work on them strategically. Otherwise, I think he'll be overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, and the question is, does he survive a second term? We know the last time, 20 years ago, when that occurred, David Dinkins was mayor of New York.
Yeah.
He only had a 4-year stint.
Right, with the crime and everything.
And with all the crime and issues and quality of life that came on before Mayor Giuliani came and took office. How much does Bill de Blasio have to deliver to avoid that kind of Dinkins controversy?
Yeah, and people are already bringing that up. In the same way Loda was compared with Giuliani, I think we're going to see a lot of that, especially as inevitably there are going to be some challenges and difficulties along the way. So he has a good start. He has a good momentum. He has that honeymoon phase, as we call it. And so I think with him getting the right team around him, he'll need, in the same way he has a tale of two cities, I think he'll need a tale of two de Blasios. He'll have to bring a lot to the forefront. And so I'm not too sure. Time will tell, you know. We'll see. So as long as he separates these things, as long as he delivers piece by piece, and as long as he communicates his strategy effectively, that's generally the dynamic with a progressive plate, with a progressive agenda. The pragmatism or the practicality of it tends to, if you study history, tends to not show forth. And so I think his key strategy now is to segment things and to get people involved. Let people see what the framework is. Let people see what the skeleton is. Let people see what the challenges are. And then, like we talked about in the last segment, getting the right team around him, getting that Justice League of officials around him to deliver where they need to deliver.
Talk about that Justice League of officials who will surround Bill de Blasio. We're going to talk about some possible names and who needs to come to the table in order to make this transition occur. That's coming up next on Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Hyman. Stay with us.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised.
practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
This was me. And Mom and Dad. And my big brother Alex. And Jack. And this was the day that I learned that sandals get their name from sand. That jellyfish aren't made of jelly. That stars don't just come from the sky. That the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget that I was sick. And it changed everything. This was my wish.
So, I got this new family. And I don't know what it is about this one, but she can't seem to put down that toy. Oh, and she even talks to it. Who's she talking to? Her mom? She talks to her mom a lot.
Live with a human for a while, and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she does strange tricks for no treats. But the one thing I will never, for the life of me, know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
He has the right think tank.
They do the smart, man. That dude is smart.
Back here on Perspectives, continuing our conversation that we're talking about Bill de Blasio, the new mayor of New York. Exactly what does that mean and what happens from here? We're pleased to be joined by our very special guest with us, Brian Ogilvie, who is the blogger of DoTheKnowledge.com. He's also the author of How to Conquer Yourself. And as we talk about Bill de Blasio and the fact that he will be taking office in January.
First.
The kind of team that he's going to surround himself with. What kind of names and what kind of people can we anticipate possibly Bill really putting around him?
That's a great question because, you know, he has to offset the council in a certain way, and then he has to also surprise people. I think if people have too good an idea of who he's going to bring in or too great of an idea of his own dimensions and his own dynamic. So that's a great question. I think. Well,
we were talking before. You know, some of the people out in Harlem, Perkins has been very much a supporter of him.
Right.
Melissa Margarita, you know, she could possibly be one, right?
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And in Queens, we have a lot of people coming to the forefront. I was talking with Corey Provost, who's a district leader, I think in the 58th district, way out there by Flatbush, and. He's not only surprised by, like a lot of people are actually surprised by Bill de Blasio's spearheading into the arena, but it's really up for grabs, you know. I don't think we could pin it down to any particular person as of yet.
When he takes office in January, what do you anticipate to be on his priority list? Probably top two.
Oh, the unionizing and then the stop and frisk. The unionizing, like we said before, is going to be a big issue for him because the budgetary concerns contrast with the union workers' agenda. So to meet them and to give them what they deserve for their issues in the past, he's going to have to forestall a lot of the debt repayments, like paying, what's the phrase? Paying Peter to pay Tom.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be his strategy. But figuring that out, even though that hasn't been at the front of the dialogue, I think that's going to be in front of the action agenda. And that's what I mean as far as articulating what some of the concerns are. Stop and frisk is a slam dunk for him. He's going to have to live up to that. That speaks well to the people. But those two issues, I think, are going to be...
Well, I think quality of life. When you look at the whole quality of life of New York, when you present the picture of A Tale of Two Cities, the thing that really resonates with people is the fact that I'm thinking about my quality of life. Now, my quality of life is different than somebody downtown. Or my quality of life is different than somebody in another borough. And I thought it was masterfully painted because everybody has a lens to look through to measure A Tale of Two Cities. And really, at the end, I think if you see more of a quality of life addressed by de Blasio, that he possibly can enter into a second term, which is like what we talked about before. You don't want to see what happened with David Dinkins.
Exactly. So now he talks often about the pre-K and after-school programs, but he hasn't gotten too specific into the practicality of how that will be achieved. And so we have to make sure, and this is going to be what the pressure is going to come from when we talk about living up to the progressive ideals. We have to make sure that he has some specific strategies in place or some specific things he can tell his constituents and his followers that this is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to make New York one again. So that's going to be a big challenge for him, addressing that, which obviously takes a lot of time.
Does Bill Thompson find a way into the cabinet?
I think so. Bill Thompson is not a guy to leave things be, and they are very aligned. In fact, if you study some of the pre-primary campaigning, it was essentially the same exact message.
So we could probably figure
I think so,
factor him to be in the running there. When we look at Bill de Blasio, his family plays an important part.
Most definitely. Let's be honest.
You know, his record, what he talked about, that's great. Quality of life, Tale of Two Cities, that's great.
Yes.
But I believe that a lot of people looked at that family structure and said, this is something that we might be able to work with, given the fact, particularly in the minority community, who said he affirms at least that, you know, through having an interracial family, he affirms at least a sensitivity to what many minorities go through in New York on a daily basis.
Exactly. And so he has to live up to that. I've spoken with him, and we all know that his family is his family. In other words, I believe in his sensitivity to it because I've spoken to the man. And so I don't think that'll be an issue at all as far as delivering to the African-American community, speaking to them, addressing their concerns, and getting them involved. Because it's not every day you see a man who has that around him.
In your blogs and in your posts, of course, you've covered a lot of this and talked about a lot of this. What are some of the things that really you wanted to illuminate going into this election day?
Well, like I said, the blog is called DoTheKnowledge.com. So do is a verb meaning to take action. And one of the things I love mostly about the progressive language as a whole is that it has a much higher capacity to involve the youth and get the next generation involved in the political arena, which we've obviously seen with the Obama campaign. So what I'd like to see and what I'd like to push and what I talk about on my blog is seeing the political arena or seeing politics as a whole as a venue not only for you to change the community, but for you to evolve and grow yourself. Specifically, we don't talk much about this, but what I'd like to see more than anything else is the next generation seeing politics as a necessity, not an obligation, but a necessity, as an integral component of their lives and as a solution to the problems that they see in their everyday lives. I think, and this is a problem we faced a lot with the activism that I've done at Hampton. I went to Hampton University. That we, you know, this is one of the biggest angst we came across. Young people generally feel powerless. They feel like the social system is against them, and that's the nature of the social system. And so I like the language I like the progressive language, and I like the ethos. I like this honeymoon thing we have going on, and I want to see them fragmented into specific strategies so that people can see themselves involved and see how solutions are built and see how communal practices and social engagement really works on a day-to-day level, as opposed to just the rhetoric.
When you talk about young people being involved, we look at the candidacy of President Barack Obama. You saw a groundswell of young people who were involved in the presidential candidacy. When we look across the United States, we do see more and more young people becoming politically active. And then when we look at some of the political uprisings internationally, we understand that young people are behind and at the forefront, I shouldn't say behind, at the forefront of really making some political change. We see it on an international level. Do you really see that happening in New York? In New York and more particularly here in the United States?
Most definitely. I met with Lauren Cumbo and Corey Provost at a fundraiser in Brooklyn called Project Uplift. There's a group organization I work closely with called Voice, and they're starting a new campaign to give creative professionals, the people that I write for, access into some of the political and social agendas and campaigns that can help them not only set their careers off, but build organizations and get people involved from a grassroots level. So I think New York is going to be at the forefront, not simply in terms of civic engagement, but in terms of connecting civic engagement with personal opportunity, which is where you get people thinking and where you get people excited.
Brian Ogilvie is our guest. He is the blogger for DoTheKnowledge.com. And coming up after the break, we're going to talk to him about his book, and the message that he's trying to send through his writing. Continue in just a second.
Know what?
What?
Since I got adopted, I've learned a lot about these humans.
I know. I mean, check out these two. It's Flirt City over here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It looks like my human is definitely into your human.
Oh, look! I think she's getting his number.
Nice.
Your human's got some sweet moves.
Takes after his dog. Oh, look, they're doing that thing where they put their arms around each other.
She kicked up a leg. It's like in the movies.
That's awesome. Looks like we're going to be hanging out a little bit more.
Being a dad can be tough.
No. What do you mean she's not coming?
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
But when you're willing to do anything...
It is I, Cruz Zinkerbell. Okay, time for cake.
It's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Drew. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
All right, give me a spot. You know my motto, safety first.
They could be dangerous. I think we should call animal control.
Animal control?
To be safe.
Don't worry.
Just...
I got this. It's a new motto.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Continue our conversation with Brian Ogilvie, who's a blogger for DoTheKnowledge.com. And then he's also the author of a book. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, it's called How to Conquer Yourself. Discipline and Willpower for the Conscious Creative Thinker. And now, like I shared with you earlier, I've been a social activist since around 2005, since the kind of anti-Bush, impeach Bush campaigning. My friends and I, not only did we do a lot of work around sweatshop labor, and there was a situation in Darfur at that time, we also did Hurricane Katrina relief, etc. And what I found was that a lot of our activism, a lot of our civic engagement was hindered not so much by the oppression and the negativity that we talked about per se, but by our own lack of time management, our own lack of productivity, our own lack of willpower, and our own lack of organizational structure and discipline. And so after some time giving lectures and giving talks about, like, let's say, African history or fluoridation in the water system and engaging students and talking to students about issues, one time, just out of sheer frustration with my peers, just out of sheer frustration with the group, I gave a lecture on time management. And that one lecture, that one talk, it was maybe like 8 minutes long, got a phenomenal response, way beyond any of the more, I guess, confrontational or debatable subject matter that I used to talk about. So I said I might be onto something here, because I recorded it, I listened to it, I liked listening to it, and I loved giving it. So I started a blog. It was called Today's Transcendence. And the idea was that as activists, and not only as activists, but as filmmakers, as artists, as musicians, as writers, etc., we each have this vision or this ethos. When we're creative or when we're active, there's something about the world that we want to change. There's something about society, or there's something about our view of what reality should be that we impregnate or we give to our work. And that makes our work not simply work, it makes it almost spiritual in a sense, it makes it very pivotal. And so I shifted alongside the lines of, rather than strict civic engagement or rather than strict issues, because, you know, let's face it, as a young person, your political views, they're always developing, you're always changing, you know, you're going from one thing to another, you're learning. I decided that rather than tell people what to think or what to believe, let me help people get where they want to be. Because I've always been, and this is, I never really thought about it this way, I've always been a very structured or very disciplined person. So again, the book is called How to Conquer Yourself. Plato says it is the first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by self is of all things the most shameful and vile. Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, says, knowing others is intelligence, but knowing yourself is true wisdom. Conquering others is strength, but conquering yourself is true power. And lastly, Buddha says the greatest, how does it go? He says the greatest victory is to conquer yourself, for then the victory is yours and it cannot be taken from you, neither by demons or angels, nor heaven or hell. So just historically, across all traditions, across all platforms, and across all thinkers of all sorts, we have this fundamental ethos of self-mastery, self-discipline, self-control. And if you take some time to introspect, what I mean in terms of not but our own personal goals, whether they be health goals, whether they be financial goals, whether they be relationship goals, these things stem and they rest upon our ability to get ourselves to take the right action, to get ourselves to do the right thing at the right time, and to make them habits so that they cultivate or flourish within themselves.
So for people who want to get a copy of this book, how do they go about doing that?
Well, it's right on my site. Again, it's dotheknowledge.com. It's also available on Amazon, but it's dotheknowledge.com. And again, Brian Ogilvie.
And you want to make sure that you get a copy of that because it's a good book, and we want to make sure that you get it so that way you can conquer yourself, because each of us has something inside of us that we definitely have to conquer.
Exactly.
Brian, we thank you for coming and sharing with us here on Perspectives, and we'll have you back. And certainly when you talk about politics and, you know, we talk about self-help,
yes,
I think you can help us out.
Thank you, sir. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Oh, definitely. Brian Ogilvie, our guest in studio, and want to make sure that you go to dotheknowledge.com, and therefore you can find out exactly what is going on. And stay tuned to Perspectives, because all the way up until January 1st, the inauguration day of Mayor Bill de Blasio, we will be bringing you news and information concerning his transition, what the transition team is going to look like, and what New York is doing to prepare for its first Democratic mayor in more than 20 years. We want to thank you for joining us here on the show. Of course, you can stay tuned to us on Facebook at BronxNet Perspectives, and of course, at Twitter. And there you'll be able to find out about exactly what's coming on the show and what we've got in the near future. Coming up, of course, we'll continue, and you'll see on our show an interview with that scandal lady. I think they call her Kerry Washington. Yeah, she's coming up, and a couple other things that we've got coming around the pike. But stay with us here at Perspectives, and you will definitely hear fresh, innovative, and challenging perspectives. For all of us here, I'm Darren Jaime. Stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference in their lives. Take care, and God bless. Thank you, man.
Raymond, look at Mommy.
Maybe the light hurts his eyes.
Maybe she's just not hungry. Maybe he can't hear us. Maybe we're not stimulating him enough. Maybe it's a phase.
Avoiding eye contact is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better.